Hello one and all, welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, my name is Chris. I'm a part-time reseller on eBay. Today, a new top tips video and a topical top tips video because it's all about car boot sales. Winter has been long. It's been one of the longest winters I can remember, and I am so keen to get back to the car boot sales. Now, to be fair, there are some fairly local car boot sales that run all year round, but when it's dark and cold and windy, they're not really attended by that many people, certainly not that many sellers. But I'm looking forward to the field car boot sales, seasonal, April through to about October. Locally, it's a free-for-all, buyers and sellers arrive at the same time, open playing field. That's the sort of car boot I love. None of this sort of, you can pay £10 to gain early entry 2 hours before. Nah, none of that. I don't deal with those ones. It's just free for all. Everyone turns up at the same time. Go for it. Now, even though I've been reselling for a couple of years, I've been going to car boot sales for, yikes, as long as I can remember, really. You know, picking up toys for my pocket money because I didn't have that much money when I was younger. So obviously I could buy more secondhand than I could new. But since I've become a reseller, my approach to car boot sales has completely changed. Although I'd frequent car boot sales in the past looking for, obviously, die-cast toy cars, like video games when I was into that sort of thing, CDs and a little bit of clothing, it was always for me. And I guess the sort of, the rush, the adrenaline just wasn't really there. But as a reseller, if you're not first, you're last. Certainly in a lot of sort of instances. So I thought I'd make a video about how to approach car boot sales. Certainly if you're new to them, or if you're, say, new to reselling and perhaps haven't sort of frequented car boot sales all that much and stick to sort of charity shops and stuff. Because although there are similarities, there are a lot of differences too. And you have to sort of adjust the way that you source in order to get the most out of a car boot sale. So without further ado, I've got 10 top tips on here just to sort of try and explain how I approach car boot sales, or at least try to, and hopefully you can get the most out of them utilising these tips. Say, it's not gospel, it's not a sort of definitive guide, it's just the sort of things I've picked up over the last couple of years with a reselling mindset rather than a mindset just buying for me. So, without further ado, top tip number 1, and this is a big one, and it will happen to everybody. Don't worry about missing out on things. Sounds simple, right? But when you're at a stall and you glance over and you see somebody pick something up or pay for something, and it's something really good and you're aware it's really good, and they get it for a bargain price, it sucks. But we've all been there. Like, it does suck. It's a horrible feeling, but don't let that put you off. Because further on in the car boot sale, you might pick something up from a stall and that same person has just missed out on what you've bought. So there's plenty to go around. But yes, that feeling of just missing out, I say it's always like by a few seconds, and you'll think to yourself, if only I'd not spent so long on that last stall, I may have bought those. You are going to play back that sort of scenario in your head over and over and over, but ultimately don't let it get to you, because it can influence buying decisions or just decisions in the car boot sale in general down the line. So just be happy for them, forget about it, move on. Don't dwell on it. We can, I know I do a lot, but don't let it take away from the car boot experience, because everyone experiences it. Doesn't matter who you are. It's just part and parcel of the car boot sales. Point number 2, take lots of change and lots of money. I mean, set a budget. If you want to take £50, take £50. If you want to take £100, take £100. But make sure you have lots of change, because I can't tell you the number of times I've gone to a stall, bought or tried to buy something that say it's £1. I might have only had a £5 on me. Sorry, I haven't got any change yet. What do you mean you haven't got any change yet? You've come to a car boot sale, you fool. This is the seller, of course. A lot of sellers don't carry change, and it boggles the mind. Like, you have to deal with cash here. You're going to have to exchange notes for coins and whatever. Why have you not brought change? So just have as many different sort of decimal currencies. Have as many decimal coins as possible. Like, exchange £20 notes for 10s, 5s, 2s, 1s, 50p's the lot. Just to make sure that if you're in a situation like that, you can pay for it rather than having to sort of scurry around trying to find some change and then the item's then gone. Again, it's happened a few times to me. Just, yeah, make sure you've got lots of change and you'll be fine. Of course, you'll run out of change as the car boot goes on, but hopefully by the end of the car boot or sort of X amount of time into it, that seller will actually have some change anyway. But it's typically when they first arrive and they don't have any change. They might have just forgotten it. I don't want to sort of pass judgment. They might have just forgotten their change, but a lot of times people are just, they just sort of think that, oh, it's that for that. People will have, the buyers will have the change. Not always the case. And the third point is actually related to the first point. Try not to dawdle too much as new sellers are coming in. By that I mean, I'm going to take a quote from my friend Lee, Cola Flipper, and his methodology is, at the start of the car boot sale, go for the low-hanging fruits. Go for the things on the stalls that you know is going to make a decent amount of profit, if you can get to it, of course. Other stuff on the stall you can ignore if you're not fully aware what it is. The mid-hanging fruit and then the high-hanging fruit. Basically stuff that's not as desirable, might need a little bit of research. We'll get back to that point in a moment. Just so you can get round to the stalls, almost cherry pick items without dawdling too much on the sort of the higher hanging fruit, as it were, and missing out on potential more low hanging fruit, if that makes some sort of sense. But go for the sort of choicey items first, and on second and third lap, then look at stalls perhaps more closely, see if anything's been missed, and do that. Because again, from experience, I've dawdled on stalls in the past, gone, oh, I might just look that up. Whereas down the field, the real low-hanging fruit is being snapped up left, right and centre, and I'm missing out on all that. So yeah, there's a bit of methodology to the madness, but certainly if you are going round, try and do a sort of, not a sprint, well, kind of, keep a watchful eye out, but just zip around, just looking for those really choicey items. And say, don't dwindle too much. Dwindle? That's not the right word. Don't dawdle too much if you can help it, because there's potential to miss out. Again, all links back to that first point. You are going to miss out on things, but once you get sort of familiar with how car boot sales work, and the sort of influx of new sellers, and as well as the sort of the movements of competition, which we'll get onto in a minute, you'll sort of get familiar with where you need to be at certain times. It's explaining it and it being conducted in practice are two different things. I'm not doing a very good job here, but you'll know what I mean when you just see people sort of gravitate sort of down the field as new sellers come in. People keep putting things out, of course, and you can snap up, low-hanging fruit from older stalls, but you really want to be in the sort of thick of the action as new cars come in, because, yeah, ultimately you don't want to miss out on too much, right? So that's point 3. We'll go with it. It might not be in the best order, but we'll go with it. It's everything here ties in with everything else. It does it in some sort of car boot, not Bible, but all of these things you can apply and they sort of link to each other. So that's point 3. So points 4 and 5 are kind of related, more so than the other points, but there's a line that I personally don't cross, but I'll get to that in a moment. Number 1 is don't be afraid to get stuck in. By that I mean, if there are people crowding around a stall, don't be afraid to just, have a nosy, peer over the top, peer under the bottom, see what they're looking at, see if you can sort of grab things before they do. It's a little bit, not naughty, but basically, if you can't beat them, join them. It's that sort of mentality. And if you're not in there, then you're gonna miss out. Everyone's doing the same thing. Everyone's aware of, everyone else. So it kind of works, at least down in the southwest. I'm aware of other car boot sales up country, shall we say, can get a bit more feisty. But certainly where I am in Devon, I've never really witnessed a fight or anything, but everyone's sort of there for the same thing. You have to get stuck in to a degree, otherwise you will miss out on things. But there is a fine line. Point number 5, don't be a boot ferret. By that I mean, don't be one of those people that as a car pulls up, boot opens and you're diving in. That's poor sportsmanship. That's poor behaviour, isn't it? It happens a lot. I've seen it happen time and time again. I just haven't got the, I don't even know what word it is. The dignity, the lack of dignity to do that. Give the poor seller a chance to get things out. Don't be rifling through the boot as soon as they park up. If you see something in the boot that you like the look of, ask them and they might reserve it for you, or they might get it out first and you can have a look at it. But don't be opening boots and doors, diving in. Again, you do see it quite a lot. I cannot stoop that low. There we go, we'll use that phrase. Don't stoop that low. Well, you can if you want to, but I'm not going to be your friend, because there's lots to go around. Don't get a reputation of being one of them, because there are enough of them in the world to make things difficult, aren't there? So yeah, don't be a boot ferret. Just wait for things to be put out, or ask. Like, all you have to do is ask. So yeah, that's point 5. Again, you can choose to ignore this or choose to like accept it, but I would never do that. And on the whole, I do okay at car boots. So just, yeah, bear that in mind. Bear that in mind. Right, point 6. This is say if you come from sort of charity shops, and if you're used to charity shops, then this one might be a little bit difficult to adjust to. But keep research to a minimum. And by that I mean, let's say you come across an item. Let's say it costs £5, but you're not sure how well it does. So you might pop away from the stall. If you've got a signal, do a bit of research on eBay just to see if it's worth picking up. By the time you get back, that item may well have gone. So you need to keep research to a minimum, because the time element is so much shorter than it would be in a charity shop. Now, I'm not saying it's just resellers that you need to be watchful for. Everybody there is competition. They're all looking for things too, right? Whether they're going to resell it or keep it for themselves. The more time you spend away from the item on your phone researching things, the less of a chance you have to buy the items in the first place. Certainly at the start of the car boot. And it very much pays to have the knowledge already in your head. It's more like Vinted, actually, in a weird way. When I used to source on Vinted, if I'm refreshing the page on, let's say, Nike trainers for a certain size, and I see a pair that seem quite, interesting, I think, oh, okay, they could be quite good. By the time I typed the product code into Google and then looked up on eBay and yada yada, they might have gone, because somebody else already knows what they are, what they can get for it, whether the asking price plus the postage plus the whatever is worth the eventual resale price. Similar thing at a car boot sale. Having the knowledge already in your head when going through a stall or what have you it's gonna pay dividends. It's because you're not wasting time researching something and gaining knowledge when somebody else also looking for that item already has that knowledge to apply. So, for what I do is, let's just, right, I'm going to combine these items. So another point I've got is take risks, but as much as you want to. So I'm going to combine these two together. So again, let's say the item is £5. Are you prepared to spend £5 on something which may do well, which may net you a bit of profit, but then again, it might not. But ultimately, are you prepared to pay that £5 to learn something? So there is that toss-up between missing out on the item or buying it, learning about it, and then applying it to future buying decisions. So yeah, it isn't good to conduct too much research in the field. My only exception would be if the item is higher, it's a higher price and you're prepared to take the risk on. So anything more than a tenner, for instance, for me, well, no, actually, it depends how thrifty I'm feeling. But anything more than a £5, sometimes I'm thinking, well, okay, I'm not prepared to risk more than that because it might be a complete flop. But then again, sometimes you have to, because otherwise somebody else will come in and snap it up, and you're left sort of wondering, wonder how well that would have done. Or you research it after it's sold and go, oh no, I should have bought that. So yeah, it all comes down to making decisions about how much you want to risk, how much you want to spend, and whether the risk is worth the reward. It's kind of, you'll get better at it the more you sort of attend car boot sales. But look, it's I'm sure even the most seasoned car boot veteran, which I definitely am not, still has these like buying decisions, because we can't know everything. Some things may look promising, but ultimately they may not be. So yeah, it's good to learn. I'm happy to pay to learn, but only to a degree. So yeah, keep research to a minimum if you can help it. Only risk what you're prepared to risk, prepared to spend. And if the risk is too much, then do the research And if it does sell, then fair enough. At least you'll now know what that item sells for. So if you find out again in the future, you can make that buying decision there and then. So hopefully that's, yeah, a nice roundup of that anyway. But there's like a kind of like a side note to that is take whatever sellers say with a pinch of salt, particularly when buying electronics. Like I said, there are definitely more risks associated with car boot sales, certainly when it comes to electronics. Now, if you're buying a pair of shoes or, I don't know, a pair of jeans, whatever, you can look at that pair of jeans and pair of shoes, look for any flaws. You can do the visual assessment in your head, or yeah, I guess so. You can do that visual assessment and then make a decision whether you want to buy them or not. With electronics, if it's not working and you have no way of testing it, you only have the buyer's word. And let me tell you, buyer's word is probably more often than not wrong. These people want to get rid of things. So if something doesn't work and they want rid, they will tell you it works. You need to be prepared to buy this item for whatever price they want, but bear in mind that it might not work at all. Again, it's happened countless times. Sometimes I'm aware that it might not work, and that's fine. Other times I've been far too gullible, shall we say, believe them, and guess what? It doesn't work. And it's frustrating. So when it comes to electronics, there's other things that you can't fully test there and then. There is definitely a heightened risk. Only risk what you're prepared to risk. Only spend what you're prepared to risk, because ultimately, if it doesn't work, you are selling that thing for spares and repairs. That's all you can do. Unless you're a bit of a wizard and can fix them, and that's great. But if you want a quick flip and are hoping to sort of, you know, turn that £5 into £40 on this particular camera, if it doesn't work, or if the lens is like sticky, or it's got like debris in it, or the LCD screen that says the camera is like all mashed up, what can you do? You know, you've ultimately got a faulty item that you were led to believe was fully working. So definitely a heightened risk, but again, only spend what you're prepared to risk, and I'd say only spend what you're prepared to sell it on for spares and repairs. Certainly if it looks a little bit off from like just the aesthetics. Again, comes with sort of practice. I fall foul of this far too many times to remember, and I'm sure I'll fall foul of it again in the future. But it's just something to bear in mind. Like, do not believe everything sellers say. And you'll see other resellers recount the same sort of tales. Bought something, told, oh yeah, fully working, yeah, I tested it this morning. You tested it at 5:30 this morning? Nah, I don't believe that. Again, you can kind of, actually, that's a side note, that's a good one. If they've said they have tested it that morning, you know full well they haven't, because they have no way that they tested that before they've left. They've woken up and then gone. So yeah, see how their body language just reacts to your questions, and then you can probably make a better decision. But yeah, electronics, take them with a pinch of salt. If you can test them there and then, fantastic. If you want to take batteries with you to test them, that's not a bad idea at all. And to be fair, it's something I've been thinking about. But then again, if you can test it and they see it's working, they might charge a higher price. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword a little bit. But yeah, just take electronics and what sellers say with a pinch of salt, because not everything they say is true. Right, enough of that. Let's move on. Okay, and another point. And again, this kind of relates back to don't worry about missing out on things. Don't be intimidated by other people. Doesn't matter if they're resellers or dealers, same thing, I guess, or just general people. Don't be intimidated by them. You might be bent over a tub of cars. My favourite thing to do at a car boot sale, no word of a lie, you might see hands start coming over your shoulders. I'm like, whoa, hang on a minute. I'm here first. Give me some space. Once I've finished, you can move on. There's no etiquette at car boot sales. Well, it's very, very rare. So you need to defend your corner as best you can. Don't be intimidated by John or Sally or whoever it is that's just hovering over your shoulder. I can hear them breathing. Don't be intimidated by them. Stand your ground. Do what you need to do. If you're going to buy it, let the seller know you're going to buy it, and then move on. people, I think it's like a shrewd tactic people use, is to stand very close to them, put people off. Maybe they won't buy something or what have you. They try and put you off. It's definitely a dirty tactic. I don't use it myself, of course I don't. But if I'm in the opposite position, you know, I'm not going to be the attacker, so to speak, but I'm going to defend my corner to the nth degree. Like they are. If I see a hand coming over as I'm looking through something, I'll be like, whoa, don't do that. Now, of course, you could see that say as aggressive behaviour. It's a car boot sale. Everyone is, like I said before, everyone's there for the same reason. If that wasn't that person doing that, then I'm sure someone else would as well. So yeah, you need to get, not bolshy, but don't be put off by other people, because doing that might scare some people off, like, oh, sorry, and then they get stuck in and find stuff. So you have to be a little bit, yeah, defensive in your, you know, what you're doing. Again, big pile of clothes, just sifting through. There might be loads of people going through, that's fine. But if you've got, like, if you're in one corner of that pile of clothes, you're going through, and suddenly, like, hands start coming in and start, like, grabbing things that you've already got in your hand. That's not cool, man. That's not cool. I'd say it has happened. You're not going to find everything. You are going to miss out on things. But if you've got stuff in your hand, or if you're looking through something, or if you're looking at something, don't let other people put you off. Like, at that moment in time, that is yours for the taking. If you want to leave it, that's fine. But if you want to take it, that's also fine. Yeah, don't let Tom, Dick and Harry, or Sue, Jackie and Margaret, don't know why I'm thinking of old names, put you off, because you've got to it first, or whatever. They need to wait their turn. Of course, in practice, that doesn't always happen. Hence the need to be a little bit defensive as to what you're doing. Does that make some sort of sense? You'll understand when you encounter these situations if you haven't. Yeah, we'll leave it there. I just thought of a new point I had to include. And this one's going to sound really, really strange, but I guess it's just how my brain works. So let me elaborate. The point is, don't be afraid to ask. And you're thinking, what on earth are you talking about? Like, here's the situation. It's better if I sort of explain this with like case study situation. Imagine you're on a stall. Imagine you overhear another buyer asking about some, let's say, some clothing, and you're aware of what the clothing is, and you're like, okay, fair play, they got there first, no worries. And the seller states the prices, and you're thinking, ooh, that's expensive. Or people that have stuff priced up, that have the like, little stickers on, and you know, fair play, that takes a lot of effort. But you're looking at all these prices and you're thinking, ooh, there's not really enough sort of profit margin here for me. And there's stuff that isn't priced up. Or there's stuff on this stall where you've heard other prices that you're not aware of what the price is. Basically, don't be afraid to ask the price of things. Which sounds like, well, duh, of course, that's why you're there. Again, maybe this is how my brain works. But there's a little bit of anxiety when I'm on a particular stall like this. And I guess in my brain I'm thinking, I don't want to ask about something if I know it's going to be expensive and then I have to say no. You can say no, of course you can. You can either accept the price or not, or you can haggle or try to haggle and try and get it for a lower price. But if the price is too high in the first place, I guess it's just how my brain works. But I almost feel guilty saying no. Not like I'm obliged to purchase it just because I've asked about it. You're free to say yes or no. It's fine. But again, it's just, I don't know, the mindset I've got, I guess, is once I've asked, I'm almost, like I said, obliged to buy it. I don't know. This one might be like just a unique case on me just being a bit strange. But it's happened a few times whereby, or even seeing an item, you know when people hang stuff on the car? And I guess, I don't know if it's just me, where you automatically assume that like that clothing is a lot more expensive than what, say, is on the table or under the table. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but like I said, I've missed out on so much stuff by not asking. And last year, I made it my sort of main aim that season just to ask. Like, it doesn't matter what the seller says, if it's like high, low, whatever. Just ask about something, because, or you can say no. You know, the worst you can do is say no, or the worst they can say is a price, and you can haggle and they can say no. ultimately it's just words being exchanged. There's no love lost asking about something, because you never know. You might ask about something and it's actually a lot cheaper than you thought it would be. And you're like, oh, sweet, awesome, I'll have that. And again, that happened sort of later on in the season. And all was well. I'll tell you what it was, right? There was one instance, and it must have been about this time last year, or maybe into April. There was a Nike gilet, like a silver tag one. Was it grey tag? You know, like early 2000s type tag thing. It's like a grey and green gilet, right? And it's hung up on this car. And I was going through the clothes first on the floor, and I had to buy a couple of things, and they were a bit expensive. I can't remember what it was now. It might be like a Hackett jumper, like something like nothing to shout about. And I can't remember what the lady wanted. It was something like a tenner, and I thought, oh no, that's a bit too much. So in my head, I was like, right, that Nike gilet is going to be a lot of money. A lady came up behind me and asked how much the Nike gilet was. £5. I was thinking, crap, that could have been like I don't know if it was downfilled or not. It could have been like a £60 gilet or more. I'm thinking, oh, bloody hell, why did I not just ask? But because the Hackett jumper was so much, in my head, I assumed that the gilet would be a lot more, so I didn't ask. But always ask, because if you don't know, you're never going to know, are you? And then somebody else might beat you to it. So that was the clinching moment. That's when it all changed. I thought, right, that's it. I've had enough. I'm just going to ask about everything and then just say yes or no or what have you. Like, yeah. Ultimately, sellers want to sell stuff, but they'll have a price in mind. But so do we. So again, it's a decision you have to make. But always ask. If you're not sure about something, or if something catches your eye and it's out of reach, just ask about it. You might be pleasantly surprised. You never know. But say not knowing and not asking, particularly if someone else asks and it's a good price, you're going to kick yourself. I still kick myself. Like a year on, I'm still like, I wish I'd bought that Nike gilet now. So yeah, always ask. If you're not sure, always ask. If there's something in the car you want to look at, always ask. It might have been sold, but without asking, you're never going to know, are you? So is that my biggest top tip? This one and the don't worry about missing out are probably my biggest top tips. Because if you sort of pair them together, you can have a good time regardless of what you find. So yeah, definitely do that. And the last point is enjoy it. Car boot sales are ultimately fun. Yes, they can be very frustrating. They can be disappointing if you sort of wake up really early, drive somewhere, and ultimately don't come back with very much. Heck, I've gone to car boot sales and not bought anything. And it's like, oh, it's annoying. But ultimately, you're out of the house in the morning, it's fresh air, you're sort of interacting with people. It's all right. They are there to be enjoyed. I find car boot sales so much more enjoyable than charity shops, just because the variety of things on offer is just immense. Like charity shops pale into insignificance compared to the stuff available at car boot sales. I find people are typically friendlier. Like, I guess you could say the sellers are like the staff, but sellers are usually friendlier. You know, depend on. No, some dealers can be really miserable, but we'll ignore that. But yeah, they're just such a enjoyable thing to do. And if you can make a little bit of money out of them, then bonus, right? Bonus. So that's it. A kind of short, no, that's actually quite a long video. A Chris Passy account of how to get the most out of car boot sales. Again, I'm sure there are loads of points I haven't mentioned, forgotten to mention. But that's a sort of just a general insight into how I approach car boot sales. I will admit, the argy-bargy nature, it doesn't happen very often. Typically it concerns stuff I don't deal with. Tools, vinyl records, video games, Lego, Funko Pops, jewellery. I don't do any of that crap. That's the sort of thing that attracts the vultures, so to speak. So fortunately I can stay clear of that. So anyway, I'll leave it there. Thank you so much for watching. Again, a little bit different to my normal videos, but I just thought, as car boot season is on the horizon, I need to make a video in case you're a little bit apprehensive about how to approach car boot sales. And like I said, this is not a definitive guide. Take everything I've said with a pinch of salt as well, because everyone does stuff differently. And even stuff I've mentioned, I may just completely forget when I'm there, you know, the crack of dawn, 6 o'clock in the morning, slightly sleep deprived, and just, you know, walking around the feel like a zombie, missing good things left, right and centre. So There we go. It's fine. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed it, please do like, comment, and subscribe. And until the next one, as always, take care, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.